Oh man. Um, I keep seeing posts online about the cost of living, specifically in America, because I think we had, at least certain people, had a long time where things were okay. Um, Things were okay. Housing prices weren't that bad. Um, Salaries haven't been going up in God knows how long, so that's been bad for a while. But for the most part, you could make do with two incomes coming in. You could live pretty reasonable. Even if you're middle class, you live pretty reasonable. Yeah, you're not gonna have a $100,000 car or a super fancy house, but I always wonder, why do you need a mansion with freaking 40 rooms anyway? Um, but the pandemic definitely changed that, and there K-shaped economy is a real thing. Like, obviously with inflation, like, people who already hold assets, richer people, since they usually hold a lot of assets because they have a lot of smart finance people around them, accountants who help them manage their money. And a large part of their money, and what you see, is not necessarily cash, it's just assets that they can liquidate at any time for cash. I'm making this super simple, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. But it's getting to a point where a lot of people are starting to require second jobs. I've never been a fan. I held two jobs once upon a time in my life shortly after I finished college for about 4 months. It wasn't a long time. I ended up quitting one and just sticking with one job. Um, and the second job, anyway, wasn't paying a lot. It was giving me like very minimal hours. These were retail days, very minimal hours. And working two jobs in retail is very difficult because sometimes they don't listen to you when you're like, hey, I can't work these days because I'm working my other job, or I got school, and they're like, we don't care, you know. But people are just having a hard time. I think if you're single and living alone, it's tough out there unless you're gonna probably live in a shithole, a crappy ass studio somewhere in a really, really suspect place in your city, then you got to do what you got to do. Listen, where I live right now is not that great. Like, I use the Citizen app. No, my phone's being used, but I use the Citizen app, for instance, and it's constantly going off at least a few times a day. Someone's down. I got a notification this afternoon that someone was shot, broad daylight, by the way. Someone was shot and killed. That was the update. I was following it for a bit. So it's not a great place. It's not a great place. And funny enough, I live very close to like a really nice place, which is I find very interesting about California, is that street by street could look completely different. Not like where I grew up in New York, where it's like, if you're in the hood, you're in the hood because there's multiple blocks that are like, okay, I'm not in a good place. And same thing with like really nice neighborhoods, like multiple blocks, or at least one little area that's nice. Versus here, it's like block to block, maybe 2 blocks, and then a really nice one, and 2 blocks are like full of druggies and tents and all this stuff. It's a very, very weird, weird place to be. Um, but yeah, you can't live alone. I've been fortunate enough to live alone for the last year and a half, I'd say. And just do this thing on my own. I got a pretty good deal in my apartment right now that I'm living in. I don't even want to know what they're gonna put it on the market for at this time, since so many people are looking to rent, and I'm just finding it fascinating. I'm like, we've been spoiled in America. We've been spoiled. Like, if you go to any other country in the Western society, I'm not even gonna say America. I'm thinking, America. I don't know too much about London and the European nations, but I would gather to say those two, Australia, because when you go to other countries in Asia, or some of the Eastern European countries and Latin America, Central America, people live multi-generational. People don't normally live alone. They live with family all the time. They live with their parents. They live with their grandparents. They live with aunts, uncles, cousins. Like, It's very, very common for that in other countries. And I always thought like we kind of need to bring that back. I mean, not in small locations. I think that's just unhealthy because I think privacy is still something you need as a family, especially if you're trying to start a new family. But that's where the world's going. I feel like houses are so expensive, even in these like places that most people don't want to go in, like Midtown America, where those people are being priced out of their houses. You know, houses are on average 400K, and those people make nowhere close to the amount of money you need to pay a mortgage that will cost you, 2,500 minimum, for instance. Um, so it's just mind baffling to me. Like, what do you do? And even me, I'm thinking right now, we're moving and we're getting, we're gonna have it's a 2.5 bedroom, half because it's like so small. You're like, this is just an office. Like, no one can sleep in this room. But as I'm thinking, I'm like, man, I might need to like get my mom here to live with us for a few years when we have a kid, for instance. Just have that multi-generational living because she's getting older, financially not that well. So I wouldn't, need to take care of her as well, which is the problem that a lot of millennials are going to be facing over the coming years. Because we're kind of in that sandwich spot where it's like our parents are getting older. We may need to take care of them depending on when your parents had you. I'm lucky that my parents had me when I was pretty young. So they're pretty youthful. Um, but they're going to get old one day anyway. And while I'm getting old, so we're going to have to take care of them and then raise kids at the same time if you choose to have kids. I can see why people are choosing not to have kids. Um, because this is crazy, man. Like even when I was apartment hunting recently, it was mad to see. I've never seen it like that. Like I've been apartment hunting a few times over the last few years, and it's never been as hard as it was this last time. Granted, we were being picky, but even in those places we were being picky about, they had 2 dozen people looking. We'd be like, okay, let's think on it. We want to give it 24 hours. We want to see what's the pros and cons. No place is perfect. And they'd message everyone saying like, oh, we have an application that's most likely going to get approved. And you're like, what the hell? Like, give us 24 hours to think about this, man. It was crazy. The first one was like, the guy was like acting as if there was no application. Then he was like, yeah, we got an application. They're willing to move earlier than you because we had about a month and a half runway. And we ended up not moving. So, because the other person got it. And it's hard because I try to be like have faith, and I'm a Christian. I believe in God. And I'm like, okay, like God has another plan. Like I gotta trust Him, but I'm also I'm very impatient. So, so that I kind of fluctuate between the two, being impatient, but also like being faithful that God has another plan. But it's hard. It's hard. Um, but yeah, like I don't know how are you guys doing it right now. The economy seems to be getting worse, even though it's saying it's doing great, and all these companies are making a crap ton of money, and the stock market's going well. It's like, well, what about you? What about you? Especially the younger folks, all you guys just graduating college, or just entering the job market for the first time, or you got laid off on your first job and you're back in the job market and just looking for your second job. What is it like for you guys? I would love to hear it and continue this conversation in the comments below. But until tomorrow, see ya.